Okay, so what happens if the tenant wants to leave early and they want to break the contract? Well, it really boils down to two simple choices. You can either force them to stay or let them go. This actually happened to one of our clients recently, and here, let's go take a look at the property. We're actually going to meet her now. So you might be wondering, what are the different ways that a tenant can end a tenancy? Can they just walk away from the property, from the lease, just like that? And the short answer is no. You have to fulfill the contract that was originally signed. You can't just unilaterally decide to terminate the contract because it's inconvenient for you to finish the lease. We'll go through the different ways you can actually end a tenancy for the rest of this video. And meanwhile, let's go take a look at the property. Look. Hello.
That easy means that no one's in here other than her niece to like.
Well, you can probably tell from. Look at the expiry dates, October, September.
Yeah, so I asked her if she wanted me to come in to remove this. She said yes, but when I came in, that's when I was like, oh, someone's living here.
So basically, the tenant said that they were leaving the country due to some emergency medical procedures and they weren't coming back. And clearly this isn't the case. What would you do in this situation? Would you force them to stay and pay, or would you just let them go? But before I answer that, I'm going to give a disclaimer that I'm not a lawyer. I'd encourage you to seek some independent legal advice. Landlording is a serious business. You're playing with people's homes, so there's laws against it no matter where you are. And this video is filmed in Ontario, so we're looking at the Ontario Residential Tenancies Act. So I would encourage you to seek some independent legal advice if you have a specific scenario. From my experience personally, I'd rather just let them go. And hear me out, let me explain why. The first thing I like to do is start with why. Ask the tenant why they're leaving, see if there's any situation you can remedy, if there's anything you can do to help the situation. Maybe you might end up having them, it's just a temporary hiccup and you can find a solution for that. And of course, the tenant has a right to enjoy the property while they're there and the landlord cannot interfere with that. But there's some specific situations that the tenant can legally go. I'll put a link in the description to give you the actual guideline on how a tenant can just end the tenancy early. So yes, while the tenant can just physically pick up and go overnight, let me ask you, what's the cost of enforcing the contractual obligations of the tenant? Now, there's lost rent that you could have, there's time it takes to get the court case, and then on top of that, there's legal costs, and you might be squeezing blood out of a stone, I think it is. Anyway, sometimes it does work in your favor for the tenant to move out on their own. And I know it sounds like you gave up, and I know it sounds like you're getting taken advantage of, but hear me out. First, in a rising market like Toronto, where there's not nearly enough supply to meet the growing demands of the population growth here, rents are skyrocketing. So maybe you might get increased rent if you had a new tenant in there. Also, it can be seasonal. So if the tenant somehow decides to move in the warmer months, we find that the rents are actually higher at that time. Or you can get somebody in the winter months that needs it for the short term to carry themselves over to the spring or summer months, which might actually work in your favor. Secondly, you can negotiate with your tenant and get your tenant on board to help you find the next tenant. They would help with showings to keep the place tidy, and maybe they even have somebody that they would know they would want to take over the lease. Perhaps they'd be willing to kick in some of the cost to acquire a new tenant. Either way, they'd be more motivated to help you with the transition to minimize your vacancies if it releases them from the legal obligations that they have for the tenancy. So you have to make sure that the tenants are up to date with their payments, and I would do a checkout process to make sure that nothing's severely damaged before you let them out of their lease early. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us directly or leave a comment below, and I'll look forward to the next video.